rinse off. So I always get really excited to do these things because I don't get to do them very often. I do a lot of stuff in front of the camera. I do a lot of stuff on podcasts and audio. I really enjoy this, but I only enjoy it for the people that want to be here, which is sort of what makes this so cool. I mean, money is obviously a big part of it. You pay to be part of this group, but it's more about you paying with your time and attention, and I appreciate that. Okay. Now with nutrition, we're talking about nutrition. We're talking about nutrition, right? So there's so much about nutrition, and it gets really confusing. Now, if you want to be a real nerd about nutrition, you can learn so much to a point where it almost doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't need to know, like that buzzer right there behind us, that's a fire alarm. You don't need to know how it plugs in for how it functions. You just know that when it turns on, we gotta go, right? It's time to go. Or the light switch works. So you don't need to know a lot about nutrition, but however, some of us, like myself, have to know a lot in order to feel confident or comfortable with what we're doing. And so my goal in this talk today is to kind of help open up some doors for you to view nutrition in maybe a different way, or maybe help you have confidence in following what you're doing. I'll start off by just saying this thing that I always say to a lot of the people I know really well when it comes to dieting, right? So the thing about so with dieting, right? I always make this joke a lot. It's if you don't eat, you lose weight, right? I always say it a lot. I say it not to everybody. I say it as sort of a somewhat condescending joke because usually the people ask me are people that I know really well. And I say that because if you don't eat, you will lose weight. It's not that it's good for you. It's not that it's wrong. It's just what happens. You know, it's not, people say, oh, you're going to gain it back. I mean, the human body is very complicated, and our body responds in different ways. So to say that if all I eat is carbs, or if I cut carbs, or if I do this one exercise, or if I sleep this much, or if I work, there's like so many moving parts. Some of us have families, some of us have kids, some of us have work, some of us don't, some of us run businesses, some of us don't. All these factors play in a role to how we eat, we exercise, how our body responds to our environment, right? But I kind of want to start off with just kind of maybe guiding with some questions, so that way I don't get all over the place, because I can go all over the place with nutrition and diet, and I want to make sure I give you information that's going to be something that you can use and that's effective for your goals and getting to where you want to be. All right? So anyone have a question? Yeah.
I have a few. I've gotten different advice from different people that either A, I'm eating too many calories, or B, I'm not eating enough calories. Oh, you work out so hard, you're starving yourself. And I'm like, you know, so for somebody that is postmenopausal, I went to my doctor today, and she was telling me that I need to consume less calories than what I'm consuming now because of my size and my age, and that when you're menopausal, your body, your organs are different, your hormones.
Right.
So therefore, and I said, well, you know, certain coaches say I need this amount, certain coaches say I need to eat more and this and that. She's like, well, are they women, and are they...
You have a very complicated question, and I'm going to do my best to answer it. To repeat her question is, you know, if you're postmenopausal or you're going through some hormone changes and you're trying to lose weight, and she's got conflicting advice from different people, how much should I eat? Is that what you're asking? Or
how many calories, and like, what about cortisol, like those
So that's a conversation I've been wanting to talk about. It's a fairly complicated question because every person is a little bit unique, but she brings up cortisol, she brings up menopause and hormones, she brings up how many calories she should eat, right? There are charts and there are guidance that you get from trainers, stuff you find on the internet, stuff from Pachito that give you guidelines. They're just guidelines, you know? They're guidelines. You start there, and then you work from those guidelines. It doesn't make sense for you to follow, like what you'll find out if you've dissected nutrition as much as I have, is that people at the lower end of the spectrum and people at the upper end of the spectrum, the numbers don't make sense. Because everything is designed for people where? In the middle, right? That's how all charts are set up. It's for the, what's that, standard deviation, right? So the shorter and smaller you are, the less the numbers will make sense for you. And vice versa. If you're really heavy and you're taller, it's gonna throw your numbers off. Now to answer your question, you start with recommended numbers and then you have to play with them. You know, people will say like, I should have X amount of carbs. You start with something, you track it, and then you figure out and decide for yourself to how much, like, if it's working or not. My goal of this conversation, this talk with you guys, is really to talk more about self-awareness, because that's really what this is. Like, diet, nutrition, exercise is self-awareness. It's nothing else. You know, I was asking a client about this. I was going to give this talk, and it's like self-awareness is not sexy. You know, to say self-awareness, like I'm trying to tell my son, teaching him to be a better student. Self-awareness does not sound cool at all. You know what I mean? But why do we want you to log your food? Well, because you get to create self-awareness. You're creating self-awareness. So, like someone says you're eating too much carbs, you're eating too much calories, or you're eating too little carbs, too many calories. You really won't know until you actually test it. You know, you weigh yourself every day, you track your food, you track your sleep. And then if after about a week it's not working well for you, or maybe 2 weeks, then you adjust it down or you adjust it up, you know? But the reason why I say your question is complicated is because we all live different lives as far as stress is concerned, and our sleep patterns will change. And then our sleep will affect how we eat, it'll affect how we exercise, it'll affect everything. So I'll just tell you right now is, I say this a lot, I say this often, but it doesn't always work very well because it's hard to explain. But if you don't get no good sleep, everything gets thrown out of whack. Like almost all the rules go out the window. It really does. It goes out the window because you're not recovering well, you're not feeling good, you can't stay to a diet. You'll have, like for example, if you don't sleep enough but you eat very low calories and you exercise a lot, you should lose weight but you don't lose weight. A lot of the time you'll have a lot of inflammation in your body. Your body will retain fluid, right? You're losing weight, you know, and if you can somehow get your stress levels down and go to sleep, and you still follow calories in, calories out, and all that stuff, your weight will go down. But that doesn't happen when you're sleep deprived, you're cranky, you're stressed out. You're gonna crash eventually, and then you're gonna eat whatever's in front. You know what I mean? So usually, like to say, oh, you need to eat 1,300 calories a day. You need to do 30 minutes of cardio 4 days a week. You need to have 100 grams of carbohydrates a day. Those are just starting points, and then you adjust accordingly. You know, question?
I don't really have a question, but people always talk about tracking their food. Okay, so you write it down, But I would recommend, I don't know if you will probably agree, MyFitnessPal helps you track your food.
So MyFitnessPal to track food, yeah.
And it will make recommendations based on your height and weight and goals and how much you're working out and macros and how
Right.
you know, and then
So like, so Giselle's saying like in MyFitnessPal, like if you log your food, it'll tell you if you're going too high in calories, too low, or too high in fat, or too low. I mean, those are great and they're good guidance, but again, nothing is gonna be able to know you better than you. You're gonna read something and it's gonna say this is bad, this is good. Everything is bad and everything is good. Everything is bad, everything is good. It's all context. Yeah, you're welcome.
So just to give you an example of what Coach Ryan is saying, when I was at my heaviest ever, to eat 2,000 calories a day, okay, at my size. And granted, I lost a lot of weight. But then I hit a point to where I had kind of plateaued. I was at 290, and I wouldn't fall below 290. It stuck. Nothing would move. And then it wasn't until I had conversations with different coaches that said you should eat about 3,000 calories a day. Excuse me? Wow. I was just told to drop to about 1,800 to 2,000, and you're telling me to go back up. So I went up to about 3,000 calories a day. I dropped to 50,000. So it's all about where you're at, what works for your body, and that's what Coach Ryan is trying to tell you, is that you have to learn what works for you. So sometimes you may find yourself doing different recommendations, and then you're going to find that one that works for you. And it may only work for a while because you might be in a season of your life where it only works right now. And then you make an adjustment later.
So to clearly answer your question, how much calories you should eat, you have to tinker with it. There is no answer. And then again, you know, I'm married. I have 3 kids. I have 3 young children. You know, and my wife's been having trouble getting in her exercise and trying to lose weight and stuff. It's hard, you know. So you gotta you have to manage it somehow. Like if you're stressed to the wazoo, it's really hard to do anything really well. Yeah.
I know that as for me, when I tend to lose weight, I lose weight everywhere, with the exception of my stomach.
Right. So stubborn stomach fat, right?
So I know that for me, I get really paranoid about eating too much. Because
Yeah.
I feel that once
right?
I get very paranoid. Like if I eat this, I'm afraid that's going to go straight to my stomach.
So you're paranoid that you're going to gain too much weight if you eat too much. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know that I'm eating the right things. But I feel like even if I'm eating the right things, if I eat too much of it,
Right.
it's stored in my stomach. That's why I carry all my food.
Right. I mean, so your question is, how do you not do that, or?
So as far as nutrition goes, how do I know what kind of food I can eat that will help, that will not make me gain, that will not contain like water or whatever it is that's there? Because that's what I feel.
So how do you know what food you can eat without gaining weight in your stomach? So that's the question, right? So how to minimize that, right?
So there's a lot of food that, oh, you should eat this because it's good for your stomach or
Right.
you know, things like that.
I mean, like the good, use a really good word. She uses the word paranoid, right? So that's a legitimate. Paranoid is a feeling, right? So you have to manage that feeling, right? Remember, the human body moves really slow, like even weight loss. It's very slow, very slow. So what you can do in a day is not going to really affect you that day. What you do in one day is going to have a very small effect. You know, it can affect your habits, like if you eat an entire pizza or something, the next day you're going to be craving junk food, which will affect your behavior, but what you actually do on that day is not going to affect your body that much. But what you do will affect your behavior. You know, like for example, like if I stay up too late, right? I won't get up early, and then I don't get to make my coffee, and then I have just terrible morning, and then I go to bed tired, and then I don't sleep well, and then we cycle that a few days, and I'm going to have a terrible week. That one day is not that bad. It's really more the fact that I didn't get enough sleep, my day went all weird because I didn't get up on time, and then I went to bed, and then I'm like sleeping well and I have a terrible week because I have low energy, because of my habits and behavior, not because I didn't sleep early. I mean, that's one of the reasons, but like, so what I'm saying is like to minimize belly fat and to minimize belly or the paranoid feeling is you have to know what you overeat that makes you overeat. If you eat too much of one food, like for example, if you eat low carb for like 3 or 4 days or even a week, right? Or you eat low calorie and you start dieting, your waist is going to shrink, your stomach is going to feel leaner, you might actually see something pop out here in your abs, right? And then the moment you have like a big old cake and you eat a bunch of fat, it's going to blow it up. That's not going to have much impact on it's going to impact how you feel, guaranteed, because you went from very low water to very high water, because you went from low carb, because when you're low carb, you retain less fluid, right? And you're going to have these huge upswing in water, right? Huge upswing. You know, typically, I don't know, anywhere from 1 to 3% of your body weight, you know? So I'm 185 pounds right now. So if I have one bad day, I will swing up like 3%, you know? So that's, I don't know, 4 or 5 pounds. So I can be 189 the next day, depending on what time I eat, depending if I use the bathroom or not, right? So like how you're feeling, you have to gauge. Like if that's just one, it's only one day. So if you're trying to minimize how much weight you gain here, as long as it's isolated to one day, you're not going to have that much of a problem, for the most part. You know, it's good to be paranoid because what it does, it helps you like, okay, I'm eating too much, need to slow down. You know, it's not that you need to worry so much about what you're eating at that moment or how bad you're eating that day. It's really more about how you behave for every food choice afterwards.